One thing you guys know that if you've been following my channel for any length of time is I have made dozens and dozens of videos about how property taxes and homeowners insurance is a giant scam these days for numerous different reasons. When it comes to property taxes, it's because the way they assess your property is completely unfair. The taxes go up even when the value of the property is going down. In a lot of cases, a lot of extra money has been collected in property taxes over the past few years due to these giant valuations, and yet local cities and municipalities have seen no improvement in infrastructure or city streets, sidewalks, all these things that property taxes supposedly goes towards, right? Well, with homeowners insurance, it's always been a little bit of a different story because homeowners insurance is an easier scam to spot. Because always the name of the game for insurance companies has been, let's collect the maximum amount of premiums possible and pay out the fewest amount of claims possible. That's the whole insurance industry's business model. And if it wasn't for that business model, there would be no way to make money and probably no insurance industry. And therefore, it's in the insurance company's best interest to pay you as little as possible if you make a claim, or maybe even drop you or deny your claim altogether. I'm sure many of you have already seen the 60 Minutes news special about this, but I want to cover this and give you my own take on things and recap this for anybody who didn't see what's going on, guys. Because basically, all these things that I've been saying are a scam have been proven to be a scam. You know, Mitch Wexler, he's been proving that property taxes are a scam in a bunch of videos across YouTube, including one that I did with him. And now 60 Minutes is blowing the lid off of how homeowners insurance is a complete scam, and here's why. In this 60 Minutes special, they highlighted homeowners that had damage back from Hurricane Ian. That was already 2 years ago, okay? And what happened is the claims adjuster came out, inspected the property to figure out how much damage is done and how much money is going to be needed to make the necessary repairs to the property. Standard operating procedure when it comes to making an insurance claim. So the adjuster said they needed a new roof on the house, among many other things, and it turns out the house needed a total of $231,000 and some change of repair costs because of Hurricane Ian. So it was an extensive amount of damage, to say the least, okay? But the problem is, once the adjuster submits the claim to the insurance company, then it goes over to what they call a desk adjuster, somebody who never saw the property, who works directly for the insurance company, because a lot of these claims adjusters are contracted out and don't necessarily work directly for insurance companies, especially when you have something like a hurricane and there's so many claims at once. But anyways, the desk adjuster is the next person who receives the claim from the person who did the on-the-ground work. And guess what? The insurance company came back with the final report for these poor people saying that their home repair cost was only $15,000, guys. So they artificially lowered the repair cost from $231,000 down to $15,000. I mean, can you imagine if something like that were to happen to you, how devastating that would be? So of course this couple didn't really know any better. They didn't know what's going on. So they got the $15,000 payout, but after the claims adjuster got paid and after their deductible, they ended up only with $9,000, guys. And guess what? That same couple now is still being forced to pay for the mortgage on a house that's been halfway torn apart from a hurricane, and they're still paying their insurance premiums because they have a mortgage. They can't just stop paying the insurance because otherwise they'll have trouble with their mortgage servicer. So this is just criminal on a complete other level right now. Just wanted to show everybody this. This is the late Robin Williams' old house. I walked past here once last year, and I believe this is where he used to live before he passed away. But it definitely was one of his properties right here in Tiburon, California. So I mean, this house, guys, is literally tarped up. It has holes all over the place from the storm. It even split apart their roof, like the roof joists where the house gets basically glued together by the rafters in the ceiling. That's been kind of like torn apart a little bit. There's mold in different places, and they're still living in this house and paying $4,000 a year in insurance premiums to Heritage Insurance, the same insurance company that is fraudulently gypping them out of several $100,000 right now. And 60 Minutes Minutes has covered that they have talked to multiple different insurance adjusters who have all been pressured by insurance companies to commit the same type of fraud. Sometimes the insurance companies will tell these adjusters directly to artificially lower these cost estimates for repairs of the property. In fact, take a look at this screenshot I took from the video, and you guys can see by how much this is happening. It is unbelievable. You can see on the left the initial adjuster report and the total amount of claim and the total amount of money that people would be owed based on the original claims adjuster coming out to the house. In some cases, $488,000, $239,000, $237,000. Yeah. Well, that $488,000, once it gets sent to the insurance company, got adjusted down to a little over 13 grand. The $239,000, only $3,400, guys. These payouts are being reduced in the magnitude of over 98%. And these are just the ones that have been uncovered. These are just the ones that have been recently discovered to be committing this fraudulent scheme. This is fraud on a tremendous scale that still to date, no one has been arrested for, because this is happening all over the state of Florida and in different states as well. Because they talked to an attorney that already submitted a criminal investigation to the state of Florida back in 2022 when he found out this was happening. And he says that he has evidence that this is happening in at least 6 other states besides Florida. And so Florida opened up a criminal investigation on this back in 2022. And guess what? Still, no arrests have been made. Nothing has happened from this. It's just business as usual after 2 years, guys. And who knows how many countless people being screwed over by their insurance company. We've always known that insurance companies never want to give you the full payout for things, and rarely do they ever. You know, I've had a few people write me over the years and tell me how much insurance really helped them whenever they had to make a massive claim and they did get a big payout and all of this. But it seems like those stories are few and far between and are no longer the norm. And it turns out one of the things that insurance companies don't want to pay for the most is a new roof. They do not want to pay for your new roof. They will write up the adjustment as a repair rather than a replacement if you do make a claim. And this is also why insurance companies now basically force you to get a new roof before even offering you any coverage. You know, before they even say, yeah, we'll cover you, you have to get a new roof in almost every case now in Florida. And here's the problem. If you get one of these bogus payouts and they, adjust down the amount that you're supposed to get, you might not even know about it, first of all, because you don't actually see the adjustment sometimes that went from the claims adjuster to the insurance company. So you don't even know what the original damage report is in some cases. But even if you do find out, then the only way for you to tackle this head on is to sue the insurance company. And now in Florida, it's harder to sue the insurance companies based on legislation that was passed a couple of years ago that was designed to bring more insurance companies back into the state. So you guys are starting to see the full picture of how problematic this is for everybody. Not just if you live in Florida, guys. Now, Florida is ground zero for this problem, not denying that. But a lot of other places are being affected by this. One attorney who found out about this, it already has collected evidence that it's happening in at least 6 other states. So you can almost guarantee that if it's happening in 6 states out of 50, then there's a very high probability it's happening everywhere to some level of degree. And trust me when I tell you, these are not innocent mistakes these insurance companies are making. These are fraudulent choices that they are making on an epic scale in hopes that you just won't go after them, because they're basically playing the odds that you, as the homeowner, will not take the time, energy, and let's face it, money out of your life in order to sue the insurance company. You'll just toss your hands up and move on, just like what people do with property taxes, and just become complacent about it and just accept what you get or pay the bill and shut up and walk away. And coincidentally, these are the 2 largest expenses that homeowners face today with everything, guys. These are the #1 reasons people can no longer afford their homes, that they're being forced to sell their homes or move out of a place that they've owned for many years because of increased property taxes and insurance. And the reason I want to bring all this up on the channel is to give people the courage to fight back against this. If you are seeing your property taxes go up unfairly or to an amount that you don't believe is fair, protest it. In fact, I'm going to have a sponsor on the channel real soon that is designed to help you protest these egregious property tax increases, guys. If you're unhappy with your insurance amount or your insurance company, or a payout that you get from them that you believe is way underestimated, sue them. Take them to court, especially if you have proof that what they're doing is fraudulent and wrong. Or even have the courage to maybe go without insurance. I'm not advocating that everybody should do this and go without insurance and just have no homeowners insurance, guys, because I know that it's a risk to do. But if you're somebody out there that has a paid off home and you've owned it for many years and you haven't made a claim ever, then maybe you're a good candidate for somebody to not have homeowners insurance anymore, as long as you can afford potential repairs that may come up in the event of a disaster. You know, of course, we just saw Hurricane Helene come through Florida and many other states across the country that got hit kind of unexpectedly with this devastating hurricane. And, you know, a lot of people are dead from this, unfortunately. It's caused widespread flooding, power outages, water outages, you name it. And it's kind of hard to prepare for something like that, whether you have insurance or not. But at the very least, like, say you're somebody who gets affected by this hurricane, right? And you lose everything in a flood, you don't have flood insurance, you just also decided to have no homeowners insurance. You need to start thinking of a way to be able to rebuild the house on your own, and maybe a new type of house that's better designed to withstand this type of natural disaster. You know, when you look at a lot of the areas in Florida, for example, that got hit with the storm surge from the hurricane, direct hit, you know which houses made it through? The ones they built on stilts, the ones that can withstand, you know, a 15-foot storm surge without water coming inside the house. Could they still sustain wind damage and other problems? Sure, but the entire house wasn't underwater. So that's kind of like the point I'm making. If you're gonna go without insurance, you need to have like an idea, a backup plan in your mind of how much it's gonna cost you to build a new house from scratch on your lot that's probably gonna be better than the house you have now and more storm resistant. And one of the reasons I think people up in like North Carolina and Tennessee and Georgia that got hit so heavily from Hurricane Helene were so caught off guard by this is because when they hear the word hurricane, they think, well, we're not on the coast. This isn't something we have to worry about. But nonetheless, once this storm makes landfall, guys, obviously you can see it can travel hundreds or even thousands of miles inland and still drop devastating amount of rain and still have pretty strong winds to go with it. So these storms that we're all getting hit by and these crazy insurance increases that we're all getting hit by, this is going to be felt all over the country. Nobody is going to be safe from this, especially after a weather event like this. And I really hope that people who have been like on the sidelines in the housing market, kind of like weighing their options and, oh, should I buy? Should I wait until rates drop further or prices drop further? I hope a lot of those people look at what just happened as a wake-up call, guys, because what just happened can happen to you if you own a home, okay? And no matter how prepared you think you are with supplies or the location of the house or the level of insurance coverage you have, sometimes unexpected things happen. I believe that's, you know, what happened to so many people in like North Carolina and Tennessee. Nobody there anticipated that they would see the epic level of flooding and damage that was caused by this storm, right? So they were completely caught off guard by this. And you as a homeowner have to realize that when you buy a house, you are the one now saddled with this risk, not your landlord. And some people can stomach that risk and others cannot. Sure, if you're a renter and you're living in a house that gets wiped out by a hurricane or a flood, you will lose everything. But at least you won't lose your life savings too. Unless you leave your life savings in the house, of course. But what I mean by that is so many people have such a high percentage of their wealth wrapped up into their home. And if they lose their home, then they lose everything in a sense. So it's just something to think about if you've been somebody on the sidelines who's not really sure if it's the right time to buy, or if you want to take on the responsibility of home ownership. This is an eye-opening experience to show you the realities of home ownership are not nearly as rosy as all the realtors and mortgage people like to paint it. In fact, we have some new information about how slow this housing market is right now. According to Redfin, we are now seeing a 30-year low in turnover for listings in the United States. Through the end of August of 2024, just 2.5% of all U.S. homes were traded from one owner to the next. That's the lowest level in the last 30 years. And interestingly enough, the share of homes that actually been listed for sale through the same time period also slumped to the lowest level in over a decade, where they say 32 out of every 1,000 homes in the U.S. was listed in the first 8 months of the year. And that's the lowest since 2012. And think about that, even in this environment, right, where the lowest amount of listings are coming to market since 2012, we're still seeing inventory up over 30% year over year, guys. That's how low inventory was for a while, first of all, but it also shows you how few people are continuing to buy in this market. Even with such a low amount of new listings hitting the market, because all of the listings are kind of accumulating on the market and properties aren't moving nearly as much as it was before, we're seeing inventory levels up over 30% year over year. That's crazy. You know, buyers already have a ton of reasons to hang on and hold off on becoming a homeowner right now when it comes to not being able to afford the down payment, when it comes to the interest rates combined with the price on the house, it's too expensive to afford the monthly payment, and when it comes to not being able to afford the type of property they want for the money, all these things, and now you throw in this massive damage from this storm to see that, hey, that could have been me, and I dodged a bullet because I don't own one of these houses. That's another reason that's going to put people on the sidelines right now. The more I think about it, I'm starting to be convinced that we aren't going to see buyers meaningfully come back into the housing market until prices come down at least another 15 or 30% in many cases, and you see mortgage rates come down to at least maybe the mid-4s. I think that's what it's going to take in order to see a meaningful level of buyer activity come back right now, because the housing market is just completely broken. And seeing what could happen in the event that you lose everything as a homeowner isn't exactly encouragement to jump into the game. You know, that's another thing that I want to touch on real quick is, especially in a place like Florida, you know, everybody says that buying a condo is a waste of money and that I would never buy a place in an HOA or anything like this, and say what you will about that aspect of it. But I would say one benefit of owning a unit in a high-rise building, especially one that's constructed well, is the resistance to storms like this. First of all, your place isn't going to be inundated with storm surge because these units sit very high off of ground level in many cases. The building may suffer some damage in its basement or parking structure due to the storm surge, but all of the units there would be largely untouched by something like that. Also, with the way that a lot of these buildings are constructed, they're able to resist, you know, a larger hurricane and wind event more than what all these houses that sit on ground level could potentially withstand. So I'm not advocating anybody to buy a condo and say it's so much better than living in a house for that reason, but it's something to think about if you're thinking about moving to a region of the country where these storms are prevalent, you know, especially Florida. When I read this next story, this makes me so glad that I'd never bought the hybrid Jeep models, because whenever I bought my new Jeep a couple of years ago, they were already selling the 4xe models, which are basically the plug-in hybrid models of the Jeep Grand Cherokee and the Jeep Wrangler. Well, guess what, guys? The U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said that owners of 154,000 of these Jeep plug-in hybrid electric SUVs should park outside and away from buildings or other vehicles until they get their recall repairs completed. Imagine that. Stellantis just announced that they're recalling 194,000 Jeep Wrangler and Jeep Grand Cherokee plug-in hybrids worldwide, including 154,000 that are right here in the United States. So far, there's been 13 fires linked to these vehicles, which prompted this recall. So these vehicles were built with a high voltage battery that may fail internally, and Stellantis said the battery pack was produced by Samsung. And this isn't the first time that these plug-in hybrids from Jeep have seen a recall. Back in 2023, there was 32,000 Jeep Wrangler plug-in hybrid recalls for a software update because some of these vehicles were causing fires as well. And what do you see the common thread with all of these electric and hybrid cars, basically cars that have big batteries that are designed to power the car, is they can become unstable and cause the car to catch on fire, guys. This is a massive safety issue, and yet the status quo is everyone's supposed to be driving one in a few years from now. don't worry that the fact it might burn your house down or explode with you in it, it's okay. You know, it saves the world, saves the environment. I don't care if people want to buy one of these cars, just don't force me to drive one, because this is just insane. I really feel sorry for people in Europe who are seeing these deadlines come up even faster than here in the US, where they're just trying to push so many people into driving these cars, even though it's been proven to cost a lot more money to charge them if you're not able to charge them at home, especially in the UK. And even if it was more efficient, you still got to worry about the car blowing up via spontaneous combustion through no fault of your own. That's a huge problem. I mean, when have you ever seen a gas car just light up on fire out of nothing, guys? It doesn't happen. Maybe if you get in a crash and, you know, a gas line leaks or something like that happens, then sure, it can happen. But just out of the blue, or one of these cars can just burst into flames, it's very dangerous. And guess what? This recall affects these Jeep models that range all the way from 2020 through the 2024 model year for the Jeep Wranglers, and 2022 through 2024 of Jeep Grand Cherokee plug-in hybrids. So glad I didn't buy one of those. I decided to just buy the gas-powered one. And it wasn't even something I was considering. They were more expensive, more inconvenient, nowhere to charge it, etc., etc. One last thing to cover here is EYM Pizza. They own 127 Pizza Hut locations throughout the United States, and they just filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they're going to be selling all 127 of those Pizza Hut restaurants. So it turns out the pizza business, especially for cheap fake pizza, isn't doing too well right now. So just another company that's bankrupt right now, that's losing everything, which is just becoming the norm in 2024, and no one even bats an eye and just says the economy's okay. So just remember stuff like this next time somebody says that everything is great and it's never been better. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you protest your property tax bill. Please make sure you sue your insurance company if necessary. Fight back, guys. That's the one thing I want everybody to take away from this video. So please make sure you're also subscribed to the channel. And if you don't want to wait till my next video comes out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.